San Francisco 49ers in Minnesota. Minnesota won the game by a score of 22-17. Um, and it was obviously a hard fought victory for Minnesota, but Jordan Addison was a huge focal point for Minnesota in this game, with Justin Jefferson being out. He had 7 receptions, 123 yards, two touchdowns. Kirk Cousins threw for 378 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. In comparison to Brock Purdy, who threw for 272 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. And the question automatically becomes, okay, is this good Minnesota or bad San Francisco? And because I watched the game live, something that stood out to me was the decision making of Brock Purdy, as well as Minnesota's ability to stay disciplined on the motions and the crossing routes and the diversity of the different formations that San Francisco throws out. And so what that tells me is that, one, Brock Purdy is defense are starting to make adjustments on Brock Purdy. So one reason that NFL rookies are so proficient and are inclined to sometimes have big seasons in their rookie year is because there's no tape on the guys. Think about great quarterbacks that had great rookie seasons. Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson, Robert Griffin III. These guys have tremendous rookie seasons, and it's because there's no tape, there's no film on these guys, right? So but what happens is defenses have no film, so they don't know what to scout, and they don't know how to necessarily game plan for the quarterback. And obviously that's to the offensive team's advantage, to the quarterback's advantage. And so quarterbacks are able to go to their primary, secondary, and tertiary options and not have to make adjustments on the fly. But what happens is, as you're able to watch film on quarterbacks, you're able to take away their primary, their secondary, and their tertiary, and you're forcing quarterbacks now to make decisions and make reads on the fly because you've taken away all of their options. And that's where great quarterbacks thrive, or that's what determines the success of a great quarterback. Guys like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, they're able to make adjustments and make reads on the fly with the defense taking away their options, their primary options. And so what's starting to happen now is that teams have now gotten enough film on Brock Purdy to say, okay, this is what he likes to do, this is what he doesn't like to do. We're going to force him to do this. We're going to force him to stay in this pocket. We're going to get pressure from outside the pocket and then collapse it inside. We're going to force him to step up into the pocket. We're going to take away his checkdowns, and we're going to force him to throw the ball in tight windows against the cover 3. And so, so that's the scouting report on Brock Purdy. And teams are starting to do that now. And so now we're starting to see how is Brock Purdy going to adjust to defenses now knowing exactly how he plays, what he likes to do, and his tendencies, and taking those away. Now we're going to really start to see how good Brock Purdy is. This is going to be a true indicator of how good he is. Now the defenses have gotten enough film on him. He's been a starter for about 6 or 7 games now, 8 games. Sorry, I don't know the exact number. If I'm wrong with that, one of you guys correct me. But there's enough film on Brock Purdy now to say, okay, this is what he likes to do. This is what he doesn't like to do. Let's take it away. And how he responds to this is going to be indicative of not only his success, but the 49ers' success for the rest of the season. Because we saw in the last drive of the game, Brock Purdy, like I said, they forced him to step up into the pocket, forced him to throw a tight window deep in cover three. They took away his checkdowns, and it was a bad throw. It was in a tight window, and Minnesota was able to create that turnover and seal the victory. But teams are now starting to take that away from Brock Purdy, and now they're starting to see what he likes to do. How will he respond? How will Kyle Shanahan be able to draw up plays that are conducive and beneficial for Brock Purdy in this offense? Then we saw that Christian McCaffrey had 15 carries, 45 yards, 1 touchdown. McCaffrey also had 51 receiving yards and a touchdown to go along with that as well. In court, George Kittle had 78 yards, and Brandon Ayuk had 57 yards, and Juwan Jennings had 54 yards. But what's starting to happen is you don't see as many of those deep throws anymore. You don't see as many of the what looks like easy plays being made for Brock Purdy, because defense, like I said, are taking away those checkdowns. They're staying disciplined on all the motions and the crossing routes, so you don't see those plays too often getting open for San Francisco. Not to mention that that Deebo Samuel obviously is still out, still hurt, which is huge, which is a blow to San Francisco's offense. And I believe that if Deebo was healthy and playing, it would mask a lot of the deficiencies that defenses are now beginning to expose in Brock Purdy. So with Deebo Samuel being out, we're getting a quicker adjustment, a quicker approximation of what Brock Purdy truly is. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that he's a bust. No, I'm not gonna sit here and say that he's great. He's gonna rise above all of this and he's gonna show that he's a top 5 quarterback. I'm not gonna say that, because realistically, what I think about Brock Purdy is what I thought all along, that he's an average quarterback. Do I think he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo? Marginally, because of his ability to scramble, and extend plays. Do I think he's better than Kirk Cousins? Not even close. So I'm sure he falls somewhere along that 15 to 20 range. So he's an average quarterback. So then the question becomes: is average good enough for San Francisco to win a Super Bowl? And the answer to that is no. So then the question becomes: what is the next move now for San Francisco? Because you're giving away Trey Lance. Obviously, you're giving away Jimmy G. And now you have Brock Purdy. You're stuck. You've put all your cards in the middle of the table for Brock. So you have to figure this out for San Francisco. And let me know what you guys think in the chat room about that. Are we starting to get a more accurate assumption of what Brock Purdy is, or is this just 2 games that San Francisco have lost in a row and nothing really to bat your eyes about? And if we look at Minnesota finally put together a good game defensively for 4+ quarters, and we see what Minnesota's capable of doing when their defense is playing well. Though the rushing attack for Minnesota still leaves a lot to be desired. Alexander Madison had 8 carries for 39 yards, and Cam Akers had 10 carries for 31 yards. It's still not enough to balance the offense out, but I'll be honest, when you have so many offensive weapons that Minnesota has on the outside, with Addison and Hockenson and Powell and Akers coming out of the backfield, and then Justin Jefferson when he gets healthy, you can say to yourself, there's no need to have much of a rushing attack, but there's got to be some sort of balance, especially when you get to the playoffs. So will Minnesota be able to make those adjustments? Remain to be seen. But those are things that I saw from this Monday Night Football game. I have more questions now about San Francisco than I do about Minnesota. But let me know what you guys think in the chat room. Was this more good Minnesota or more so bad San Francisco? And what does this game represent for both these teams moving forward? Leave your thoughts in the chat room, guys. In our next segment, though, guys, we, like I said, are going to be discussing the MVP leaderboard and who my candidates are, the top 4 candidates for the MVP race so far. So, guys, be sure to stick around for that. You're not going to miss it. We'll be right back.